Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Jiayanu, Pakhair-agale, Ni-hao, Chunashumme, Washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas, Guten Morgen, Hola, Bonjour, Privyet, Kaifa hal? Halishuma Chatore, Ahlan Wasal Marhaba, Buna, Mucho, Gracias, Swabia, Balli Kare Aya, Hosh Galden and Ayosaya, Huyamora, Chivato, Chihal, Yot Kali Mera, Khairutan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. A very happy Friday to each and every one of you. Jummah Mubarak, ladies and gentlemen. I happen to be Shahzad Hasan Khan. And with me, I'm really lucky that I've been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajra. Satti. Hello, Hajra. Assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. Jummah Mubarak to you
Yeah,
and everyone who was watching out there. So now moving our attention and focus towards the South Caucasus nation in Azerbaijan and Baku, where there was a gathering of the global leaders deliberating and contemplating about the future and the health of our environment. So Deputy Prime Minister Mohammad Asghar and Prime Minister for Information, Minister for Information Ataullah Taru visit Pakistan Pavilion at COP29 in Baku. On the arrival at the venue, Prime Minister, Coordinator on the Climate Change, Rumina Khurshid Alam, warmly welcomed them. Officials of the Ministry of Climate Change were also present on the occasion. Rumina Khurshid Alam briefed the Deputy Prime Minister Mohammad Asghar about Pakistan's pavilion at COP29. Various Pakistani-made products have also been put on the display at the pavilion. And I think one of the very important things that I find really enticing about this entire Pakistan's representation at the COP29 was how Prime Minister was focusing on the glaciers of Pakistan. And in the South Asian region, particularly in Pakistan's north, it is called the third pole of the world because of the amount of the snow, the ice that it contains. And it is very threatening. It is very scary to contemplate that if this water, if this ice melts down, what is going to happen, because it holds many civilizations. So if you see how the Indus River is flowing, and is actually because of those glaciers which are melting, and the water is coming from there, and it has hosted so many civilizations, so many settlements for such a long period of time, and we do not really want to lose our identity because of this climate change. And that is why there's a dire need to gather around and converge on this very pertinent problem.
Exactly, and which is why, you know, we have had multiple conversations. We've had guests over here inside the studios as well. We've had been in conversation with our, you know, special correspondent from Baku as well. But I believe that, I think that it's the words which will matter the most as well. We have spoken about climate finance. But while we are at it, I think from a very serious business to something which I would want to kind of share with my audiences is, I don't know if a lot of people, you know, remember Judy Garland and her ruby slippers. I think that's the conversation will be, that's what the conversation will be about as well. Because imagine those slippers were stolen in 2005 and they come back in auction. So let's go ahead and, you know, listen to the story, what the story has to say. The iconic ruby slippers that were worn by actress Judy Garland in the 1939 American musical The Wizard of Oz are up for auction nearly 2 decades after a thief stole them, thinking they were adorned with real jewels. The slippers were stolen in 2005 by a mobster from the Judy Garland Museum and were recovered by the FBI in 2018. Wow, their FBI has been looking for slippers with fake jewels on them. The auction runs through December 7th, with the current bid set at $812,000 and the next minimum amount set to $825,000. डिस्काउंट भी कोई नहीं है, जैसे पाकिस्तानी ज़्यादा सर 8.5 लाख ले रहे हैं आप, तो आप 8 लाख ले लें, नहीं 8.25 हो सकते हैं.
Right. And I don't think so. I would, you know, spend so many amount of the money on
पहले इकट्ठे तो कर लें.
shoes. Yeah, they're not even worth it. But I guess people have some very crazy ideas in executing them. But speaking of crazy ideas and executing them, so we've seen today happens to be 15th of November, and we have seen that how when the global community comes together for a more productive cause, but there is a flip side to this humanity or the global convergence, and we see that there are lots of transnational organized crimes that is happening because of the lot of the invested interest, because we see that how people have so much money, there's so much money involved in that, and how people are being exploited. So according to United Nations Transnational Organized Crime report in 2009, it estimated to have generated $870 billion which is almost 1.5% of the global GDP.
And that's something that they got to know about.
Yeah, and it's a very staggering amount, right? And just imagine, you know, how much they are earning from the suffering of the humanity. So human smuggling, migrant smuggling, and the firearms smuggling. But obviously, we do see that United Nations has come across and wanted to have a conversation and kickstart some actions to curb this transnational organized crime. And Pakistan is also playing a very significant part in that, because Pakistan is also focusing and ratcheting up the support of the civil society organization, because it is very essential to helping curb this menace of TOC, the transnational organized crime.
Exactly. And Hajra, while we are at it, I would love, you know, for our audiences to kind of understand what transnational organized crime actually means. You know, so I'm going to give you a few examples. For example, falsified medical products, or probably protected species, you know, being smuggled, not just that, illicit trafficking of firearms, inter alia, you know. So there are a lot of things which actually come under this sector as well. And believe you me, you know, I think that it's more than trillions of dollars if we are to kind of speak about it. $870 billion figure that you mentioned from the United Nations. And
that was from a report in 2009, right?
Exactly.
And a lot of time has passed. I'm pretty sure the number might have ratcheted up a lot.
Yeah, so imagine that, you know, if there's a lot of money involved, there are a lot of people do get involved as well, you know, so not every, Sharif, wohi jisko mauka nahi mila. I think we're going to discuss this today. What's Pakistan's footprint on this and how Pakistan wants to curb this menace. We're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody, ladies and gentlemen, who I think I've been a fan of all my life, you know, because of the kind of service that he's been rendering for our country is something which we really need to kind of appreciate. He's the recipient of Sitara Imtiaz, Tamga Imtiaz, you know, not just that, an active member of the Global Initiative Network of Experts. You know, he's a High Court advocate, UN consultant, you know, so there are a lot of things, and he is a PhD doctor as well. Ladies and gentlemen, we're very lucky that we've been joined by the former IG of Islamabad as well, and not just that, motorway police. He is Dr. Syed Kaleem Imam Sahab. Hello, sir. Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Thank you very much for having me in your program.
Thank you so much for joining us, sir. It's like, you know, the star just broke and came to our program.
Right, and it's an absolute pleasure, sir, having you in the program. So now let's start our conversation on the TOC, the transnational organized crime. So what is Pakistan doing in this regard, and how active are we in gauging the impact of the civil society in our efforts to curb TOC?
Thank you very much again. I would say Pakistan is pretty active for the last couple of years now. We have a national focal point person also for the UNTOC, and we have civil societies which are actually very proactive. And I was just saying before this program, today we have a transnational organized crime roundtable conference in Lahore being conducted by Central for Governance Reforms, Mr. Tariq Khosa and Tariq Parvez, eminent police officers, and more than 25 civil society organizations would be there, beside 65 international experts and national experts will be participating. And primarily they will be dwelling upon, like, where are we and where are the gaps and what have we done so far. And I think civil society has a very important role to play, and actually they are the whistleblowers, and they actually come to not only to the rescue of the state institutions, and but actually they carry out a lot of research, lot of interaction, lot of mutual assistance programs with UNODC and other components, you know, and they actually are able to bring what is happening right on at the grassroots level, especially in the contracts of drugs and human trafficking and now illicit armed trafficking.
Right, and sir, when we focus our conversation on the TOC, transnational organized crime, so when we talk about Pakistan, which are the most vulnerable communities that come into the grip of the TOC, right? And how can we make sure that there is more awareness there, so it has a more trauma-centric approach, survivor-centric approach, and how we can make sure that there is a bridge between rehabilitating those people, those communities that are victim to TOC?
Yes, victim support program is a part of the UNTOC, and part of the international collaboration with countries are supposed to adhere, and Pakistan again is trying its best in the context. I think we have taken certain steps, but we need to move far ahead. We do have some centers, but there's a question of capacity, there's a question of trust, there's also a question of resources, of as people come to these places, how do they actually respond. So we see victims of human trafficking, we see victims of people who got used to drugs and got addicted. It's good now that we take person taking drugs mostly as a patient, and we don't take them as a criminal. Yes, the criminals are the persons who are actually facilitating it,
Yes.
producing it,
Right.
manufacturing it, doing it as a business, and persons who actually get into it for one reason or the other, actually they need our help. They need the healing hand, healing support. And very quickly, I would say, I've been saying to the educational institutions, you cannot expel someone, some student, if he is taking drugs. You need to counsel him, like you just said. You need to give him therapy. You just can't say that we won't let this happen in our educational institute and we expel him, you know. So where would he go? Suppose
Stigmatizing him,
it's
right?
like
Yeah.
my child, you know, suddenly coming across this trauma, and we just throw him out of the house. We can't do that. And we keep on saying that, you know, and I hope someone will listen to that someday.
Exactly. And in addition to this, sir, I think there's this, I think it's a very interesting debate if you're going to have or talk about it. And that is that, do you think that the way that the world looks at organized crime as of now could have been a little different if we were to legitimate, you know, a few of the activities in between, where obviously it didn't become a harm for our national security, but may it be drugs, may it be anything. Certainly, sir, you know, everybody on the borders, I'm not sorry that I'm, because of the fact that I think I have to be just with my job as well. Now imagine there are people from within the circle and from outside the circle who collaborate, which is why we call it an organized crime. Because otherwise it cannot be organized if people from within the system are not in connection with the people who certainly want to run the system. So how do you think that the perspective of looking at it should be different to tackle this menace?
You see, if criminals can get organized and commit a crime, so why not law enforcement, nation and countries get organized to fight against
So what about
crime?
the criminals within the law enforcement agencies?
Yes, it's a reflection of society. When
Saade
you-
de paa diyo.
It's all the persons that you see in any institutions
Okay.
at important stakes, whether they are stakeholders doing businesses or doing communication or being entrepreneurs, are people who belong to a society. So the first thing is like how were they nurtured at the level of families, at the level of neighbors, neighborhood, at the level of schools. So you take out these people and then you train them, you build their capacity, and then you place them at certain positions, and then you throw them back into the same pool from where they have come. So how many of them actually are going to excel and distinct and make a difference? How many of them will actually just sort of become what the society is and perpetuate themselves, go for the survival, go for the money? You are absolutely right. There are black sheeps and there are bad people out there. But the very reason that these organizations are formed, because there are some good people who are trying to fight against
And
these people.
I'm going to second that, and there is a reason. Now imagine that way we spoke about human trafficking or human smuggling, there is a lot of difference in between. So certainly one is with consent, one is without consent. Now if you go to our Punjab belt, you know, I think Mandi, Bahawaldeen, Lala, Musa, Dina, everybody wants to go abroad. Nobody has that one particular visa that, you know, certainly allows you to go to any other country, but what they do is that they fall prey to the agents and they're like, okay, gee, I'm donkey, you know, I think it's really famous these days as well. Now, how do you think, because you said that it's a reflection of the society, how do you think that we should, you know, give them this much of awareness that, brother, rather than you going after donkey to whatever country you want to go, you can have the same livelihood, agar 40 lakh rupees aap yahan laga lo.
This is so important and so pertinent, you know. You need to see where is your education system, where are your educational programs, where are your family tradition, values and cultures which are supposed to actually bridle people. Most of us, you know, as we grow and as we evolve and as we are given responsibility, we have a shade of how we have been actually brought up.
True.
Coming back to your question, people, you know, they want to go abroad because they have seen their siblings, cousins, friends going abroad and making a lot of
And
money.
anyone who's gone to US has got a petrol pump now.
And they're making good. They are my friends, you know, who were studying with me, who went to America, did taxi driving over there, and they're millionaires now. But they all mainstream themselves subsequently. But gone are those days.
Yeah.
After 9/11, things are very strict. There was a time that our labor is still required in many parts of Europe and other places, but not so much. They need skilled people, number one. They want people to come in a due process. They don't want to come through illegal means. Secondly, we need to build capacity, hold law enforcers responsible, do community policing, hold people to accountable that why are these people so thirsty and so desirous of leaving their country? Why can't you provide them opportunities over here, number one, and if they really want to do, build skills, let them go and outshine over there, and then they can merge into that society. But the point is, there's a slipshod methods. People who are doing it, they get away, and this is where the organized crime forums is coming up. They say, let's do mutual cooperation, let's do extradition, let's have a lessons learned, let's do after action review, let's see what they, like the famous recent case at the wreckage of ship near Greece, you know, they won't let you enter. So let's learn what went wrong and why they, even a famous hockey female star was a part of that, you know, sad episode, you know. It is so sad to see that people who have done well in life or in their own society are all, you know, believe that there's a big fairy land over there and they can go and outshine.
And Dr. Saab, absolutely, you know, balancing between the desire to have a better lifestyle and the realities, because grass is always greener on the other side, right? So Dr. Saab, I would like to invoke the article that Dr. Tariq Khosa wrote, and he talked about that Pakistan's pilot initiative on the UN-TOC review talks about criminalization and jurisdiction. Do you think this is an appropriate response to this menace of transnational organized crime?
It is. This is one of the component, criminalization. The second is like prevention and suppression. Again, the third is like mutual assistance. The fourth is like international cooperations. Now, there's a country review and there's a general review. There are countries who have ratified it. There are about 6 countries who have signed it, have not ratified it. They haven't come in that main umbrella. Now the countries, the clusters are formed, and countries go and start reviewing what the nations have done to adhere to the on-TOC regulations. And we are having one since 2022, and we are on it, and it is going on in other countries also. It's here where the United Nations and this cluster of nations would go and see where do they stand in human trafficking, where do they stand in the question of drugs, where do they stand in money laundering, and actually they would like to build their capacity and at the same time, you know, provide some mutual assistance and bring them in the loop, you know, so they perform better.
Right, and when we talk about the deterring human smuggling or the migrant smuggling, that I would like to say, right? So do you think, you know, because you have to challenge a lot of vested interests, and that too when it has a strong nexus with the money, the capital that is involved, right? So what sort of efforts do you think on the ground policy level, because you have been invested and you have an expertise in the police department and you have a very extensive experience there, how much do you think are we ready on the ground to tackle or deter the migrant smuggling that is happening within the Pakistan soil?
I believe what was just one of my friend over here was saying, you know, we have systems, we have certain legislative framework. It's the only question we adhere to them. For example, I believe that institutions, law enforcers, all have to work in a due process. They have to be transparent, they have to be accessible, they have to fight against corruption, they have to be accountable. You have to ensure that best people are recruited, right person for the right job, and you give them operational autonomy, but you hold them responsible. Like what you have just said, the issue comes when you know there is a law, but there is no application of law. So we all, when we go through certain crises, we would go for the severity of law. I believe you need to have a certainty in law. Anybody violating breaking the red light should be penalized. 100 rupees, 1000 rupees or whatever. But if you let certain people go, do selective policing, you're not fair in implementation, then everybody would like to do it and everybody will get away from it. So most of the crime takes place because people believe that the system is weak, they won't come into that net, and if they do come to the net, they will go scot-free. When some investors come to Pakistan, somebody was narrating to me, he saw a building over here, and he says, I see this building, how old is this? And why isn't it being decided that what is to be done? He said 20 years old. So if for 20 years you haven't decided about a building, even in Melody, if you go, there's a building, then people will not invest and will not believe in it.
True. Which is why I said, you know, to quickly wrap it up, because you spoke about due processes as well, and we get to hear this, you know, कि हमारे हाथ बंधे हुए हैं, you know, जब we are binded by the law to, you know, to kind of pursue whatever angle that they are pursuing. Don't you think that it's about high time that we think about how those processes needs to amalgamate or evolve due to how transnational organized crime is taking place, because all of them, everybody up there, sir, is collaborating. What we are doing is that we are actually stuck within those due processes which have been made by us ourselves. How do you think that we can unwind that?
Yes, due process made by us and propagated by us. We are its proponent, but we don't want to follow it.
Yeah.
We want it to be applied to someone else.
True.
Secondly, you know, when we talk about due process, you give credibility, you bring a trust, you bring a reliability, and people will start giving. Thirdly, institutions, law enforcement, and all these organs have to be ethical.
True.
And they must be seen to be ethical, and people should believe in what they are saying. And this will only happen if they are following a due process of law. They are transparent. They are letting people know that they don't care from which class you belong, but here is a justice. And lastly, how you can do it? Accountability.
And
you
what about
have
the
to hold
evolution
people
of the
accountable.
processes, sir?
Say
The
again?
due process evolving, you know, for better performances
Yes.
by the law enforcement agencies, because I think within those due processes, what we do is that we get stuck that, okay, you know, we might not have that jurisdiction, we cannot go to that place, we cannot go or follow that particular criminal.
Held accountable.
Okay.
They say this, if you go to any police station and you report there's a crime which has taken place, and the police station says this is not his jurisdiction, it is still his duty to write a report,
Thank you so
convey it to the nearest police station. This man has reported to me about a crime which has taken place in your area, and it's now your job to take over.
Wonderful.
He cannot just say you go home.
And absolutely, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for coming here, for shedding the light on the hidden and the very more apparent aspect of the cost of the transnational organized crime. And inshallah, in the days to come, we are seeing a vibrant action, because our civil society and law enforcement agencies, people in the power, they are converging around it and making sure that Pakistan is free from this menace. With that, we are going to wrap up this segment. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for coming here. And we are going on a short break, and after we come back, we have an interesting discussion lined up. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. Earlier, certainly, we were observing the Transnational Organized Crime Day, which obviously was, you know, I think it came into being somewhere around in March 2024 as well, because of a judge who was assassinated, you know, by certainly a mafia, you know, gang or whatever. So I think that's the reason why UN recognized this day as well. But while we are at it, I think there's another problem that we really need to kind of put our heads into, and that is smog. Now, previously, we do know for a fact that certainly, you know, it was in Lahore and then in Multan, but now even in Islamabad and the circumfencing area. But while we are at it, I think there's one update which I would want to share, because you do know how much I love cricket and to speak about it. Just yesterday, the three T20 internationals, the first one took place. You know, it was a rain-hit match. It was a 7-over game. And well, Australia won the match, and this is something that I was really sad about. But Australia beat Pakistan by 29 runs in a rain-hit match. Australia beat Pakistan by 29 runs. As I mentioned, the match was reduced to 7 overs per side due to rain. Batting first, Australia scored 93 runs for the loss of 4 wickets in allotted 7 overs. In reply, chasing 94, Pakistan scored 64 runs for the loss of 9 wickets in 7 overs. For the loss of 9 wickets in 7 overs, Pakistan lost first 6 wickets for just 24 runs. Abbas remained top scorer with unbeaten 20 runs, hitting 2 fours and 1 6. And I think this is exactly what we spoke about on PTV Sports just yesterday, Hajra, that we do not have a hard hitter in our team, and we certainly do need it. You know, I think people must be reminiscing of the fact that there was Fakhar Zaman, that there was Iftikhar Ahmed who could actually hit sixes. But unfortunately for now, even Syed wasn't even in the playing 11.
Right, and speaking of Australia, so it's not just the cricket that is blooming there, there's also blooming flower.
Right.
And thousands have lined up for a rare chance to see and smell an unusual plant in the Australian city of Geelong, just south of Melbourne. The shortened name of the plant is Titan Arum, and it's commonly called foxflower. What is unique about the plant is that it blooms unpredictably, sometime just once every 10 years, a decade almost. Oh, that's interesting. So the plant releases a putrid stench when it blooms to attract pollinators like beetle and flies, and each bloom only lasts 24 to 48 hours, making it a highly coveted event that draws huge crowds and huge people to observe it. Yeah, and it's very interesting, you know, and it has a very...
in 10 years.
Yeah, in a decade almost, right?
Yeah.
And the bloom is just for 1 day to 2 days, and that's very interesting and amazing. And subhanallah, whenever we see and witness, we see the glory of Allah, that how Allah manifests His beauty in the universe around them. And certainly there are lessons and signs for those who think and reflect, and this is the lesson that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us in the Quran. And now moving on to something very interesting which Shahzad mentioned, and that is that how when we humans, we are unable to look after the environment, the health of the environment or nature strikes back, and this is what we are observing in the form of the climate change and the emergence of smog, that too in the capital city of Pakistan, because in Islamabad we never witness the darkest skies or the polluted environment. And now since we are victim to it, and we are witnessing that there are lots of diseases that are on the rise, it is attacking the human, I would say, body, and how to deal with that, how to cope up with that. There's also the prevalence of the pink allergy, or the something that is going on in the eyes and the stomach. So how to unroll and protect yourself. And we are very glad that we have been joined by Dr. Rana Jawad Asghar. He happens to be an infectious disease expert. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
So wonderful to have you over here. You do know, what we are, what we've gathered to speak about. Certainly smog, Lahoris obviously unfortunately have been at the forefront or the brunt of it. But now even in Islamabad, how do you think, sir, we really need to kind of cope up with it? Because imagine that we need to work, we need to make sure that our livelihood keeps on going in a way that, or at the pace that it has already been going. How can we protect ourselves, sir?
So the first thing is try to minimize the exposure to the outside air as much as possible. That's fine. But once you are in the office, keep the windows shut. Don't open the windows. Remember in COVID days, I was one of the major advocate who were saying open your windows, open your doors. But now shut your doors, shut your windows, and stay in, so the outside air couldn't come as much as you could reduce. Number one. Number two, do not do exercises in this month if there is a heavily polluted outside.
Oh, really?
Not outside.
Outside.
No, inside is fine.
Yes.
Sir, inside bhi to wahi hawa hai.
But no, once
exposure is left,
is left, and people are now using, measure small
air
tools,
purifiers,
and also measuring how much pollution is inside and outside, and there is a major difference between these two. So don't do those exercises, and if you are going out, try to wear a mask, whatever, it's easy said than done, because I can't even, it's difficult to wear a mask even though I am a doctor, but these are some of the precautions. But the strategy should be the long term for the country to move on, which is moving toward cleaner energy, moving toward less vehicles and less fossil fuel burning.
It does not look like that, unfortunately, and I'm really sorry. I think I'll have to say this, because imagine that in Lahore, they've been experiencing this phenomenon of smoke for past 5-6 years. Rather than that we would have witnessed reduction in this smog menace, we have seen an increase where it has gone to Multan, it has come to Islamabad, now even Peshawar, Bahawalpur. So it's just spreading fiercely. It does not look like that we will be able to curb this menace in next 4 or 5 years. So I think it's better that we raise awareness about how to protect ourselves.
So you are very correct that we haven't seen any major impact or even a policy on that. But remember that when there was a COVID-19 pandemic, AQIs improved drastically, and the atmosphere was clear, and you could see far away mountains from your home. So there is a way, but that's a very drastic way, because it, the economies are shattered if you do this. But gradually you have to shift, and I think the government is now paying attention to it. Until now, people were thinking it is just an inconvenience for 1 or 2 months. We will cough, we will have some allergic condition, then we will be fine. But now people are being knowing the fact that it's a multi-system disease. It has 50% mortality. It's attributable to it in the people who have chronic pulmonary diseases, people who have other respiratory diseases. But that's understandable. But now people also beginning to know that even for the heart patients, 30% mortality is could be attributable to this pollution. Preterm babies, low birth weight babies, so the mothers and child unborn child are at a higher risk. So once people and policy maker begin to understand the whole impact of this pollution or smog, I think I'm very hopeful things will improve in the coming years.
सर अब समझ जाना चाहिए था ना अभी तक.
Dr. Saab, now let's focus our conversation on something that you said, which is very important, which is about wearing the mask. Right now, as a layperson from the COVID times, we know and we debated, you know, how much mask is effective against curbing that, you know, epidemic or pandemic. So, in terms of smog, you know, what sort of mask do you think we should be wearing, and is it an effective deterrent against this polluted skies?
So the one with the 90 to 100% effective are called N95 mask.
Okay, the white one, yeah.
But the
Expensive one.
Those are the medical ones, and the one we used in pandemic, they are called KN95.
Yeah.
They are a little lower version. I did. But important thing is how you wear it.
Okay.
Because if the air is leaking into your mouth or nose, then even 100% effective mask won't be helpful.
Right.
But my argument is this, that even if it is 20%, 30% effective, maybe 10% effective, you are minimizing your chances of getting, you know, the damage. So let's use it as much as you could, but don't, if you wear it, don't put it on your chin, you know, put it on
Or on your nose only.
And speaking of the allergies, Dr. Saab, so yes, we know that smog is a phenomenon that is partially attributable to the human activity and obviously how we are not looking after the environment. But now also talk about a disease that is very prevalent, that is very Islamabad centric, that is the pollen allergy, right? And I do believe that it is the result of the wrong choices that we made in afforestation programs, right? And especially the mulberry tree, it's a very contributing cause of it, right? So how can we also curb this phenomena, because the trees are out there, you know, you can't do anything about it, right? So how can we effectively deal with this
Or
situation?
how bad it will be for people who are already suffering from pollen and then they are experiencing smog as well.
So smog is actually makes you vulnerable not only for pollen but all other diseases also, including cancer. So the smog is much bigger enemy or much bigger problem which we need to deal with it. Pollen allergy, like 15 years ago in Islamabad, was a major problem, and I think over the years they started to cut down those mulberry trees, and now the problem is there because you can't do 100% removal of those trees, but still, it's, if you compare it like 15 years ago, it's much less. But the thing is, with smog, you are vulnerable to everything, including what our topic was, the pink eye or the conjunctivitis. You know, Pakistan get regular outbreaks of pink eye, but that are due to viruses. But with this smog or the pollution, environmental pollution, you can have an allergic eye, which is also will be called pink eye or conjunctivitis. So that's another problem.
So how do you deal with that?
Is it infectious? Can you pass it on to other people as well?
So the pink eye, which is due to viral, which most of the Pakistani conjunctivitis patients are in normal days, this could easily pass into the others by just touching, shaking hands, using the same towel and things like that. But the allergic conjunctivitis is not possible. So this is just like an allergic condition. You can't infect other with your allergic condition.
But sir, with this, you know, there's another pandemic or epidemic. I would love to kind of mention it over here, and it's because of the fact that every now and then, whenever the weather is transitioning, we do get to hear it from the doctors. It's a viral infection. Now, because you're an expert in infectious diseases as well, to my knowledge, what I've understood is that when a doctor says that it is a viral infection, means that even the doctor does not understand what sort of an infection that is. Sorry to say that, but that's exactly how the case is. Now, what do you think that we need to do? Because now there's no treatment for it. Okay, you know, there's a lot of antibiotics that we use, and then there's antimicrobial resistance that we build up. Where are we headed? Unfortunately, if I'm going to be 70 one day and I've had so many of you know, antibiotics, I don't think they're going to work on me.
So the number one, if doctor is saying it's a viral infection, then he or she should not prescribe you any antibiotics, because antibiotics are not effective at all in the viral infection. If it's he or she is a good doctor, normally doctors know the seasonal patterns of diseases. So they know that in this season, because they're doing it for like 30, 40 years or whatever time, and they know like in each season which are predominant diseases which are common. So if you are in the West, they will send you for your labs and, you know, get you like a multi-test. In Pakistan, because of the people cannot afford, doctor has to make a wild guess based on your symptoms and what is going on with other patients. So I think you should believe with your doctor.
And Dr. Saab, now let's focus our conversation on something very important. I think in the past month, everyone in Islamabad every other person I would say was experiencing some sort of digestive issues or some sort of stomach bug, right? Is it linked to the health of the environment, and how are we going to deal with that problem?
I think environmental degradation, as we said, affects everything. But the stomach bug, which normally happens in Pakistan, is due to the quality of food which we consume, especially the outside food, because how they prepare that food is major issue. What type of ingredient or the water you are drinking, these are the issues. So I would put that blame on the food you consume in those days.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab. It was lovely to be in conversation with you, and
much.
thank you so much for playing your role in raising more awareness. I think while we are at it, and since it's Friday, we certainly want to speak about how the Muslim Ummah needs to unite. I think me and Hajra, we've always spoken about such topics, and we certainly would want that that the Muslim Ummah emerges as united, and I think that's one thing that the world needs to see, inshallah, in days to come. And to speak about it, we're very lucky that one of my very amazing colleagues, I think he's more of a teacher as well, is with us, joining us, I think from Qatar, if I'm not wrong, Mr. Imran Sandhu Saab. Assalamu alaikum, sir. Jummah Mubarak. How are you doing today?
Walaikum assalam. How are you doing, Shahzad and Hajra?
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you. So, the unity and brotherhood of Muslim Ummah, sir.
Yeah, so I'm not in Qatar, I'm in Oman at the moment, and Oman is about to celebrate its National Day. Omani flags all around, and it is also part of our Muslim Brotherhood. So, yeah, the topic that is we are going to discuss today is Muslim identity in correlation with Muslim Brotherhood. So, and the context is also going on. Islamic Summit has actually was going on. There were all the Muslim countries were there in Saudi Arabia, and the topic was under discussion over there as well. So there are two things. One is faith, and the other is our existence. Faith is the Muslims are Muslims are united in united. The unity of Muslims are actually is actually based out of the genesis of Muslim brotherhood or Muslim unity and or Muslim identity. It comes out of the faith. It is a matter of faith that Muslims need to be united. As Quran says, Muhammadur Rasulullah walladina mahu ashidda wal kuffar wa ruhama bainahum, that in matters of conflict with Muslims are united against the hostile forces who are with Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and the Ummah. So, as far as our faith is concerned, our Iman is concerned. Iman is 5 things, like Buni al-Islamu ala khamsin. Al-Imanu billah, that is Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. That Iman is that we give a testimony that God is one and Prophet is his last and final messenger. And then the Muslim identity, the second part of Muslim identity is as-salah, iqamat as-salah, that we establish prayers, that is known as as-salah in Arabic, in Quranic terms. Ita is zakah, and then we are financially, we help each other financially by giving zakat. That is incumbent upon all the Muslims. And then Hajj al-Bayt, then we go as a nation, we enjoin Hajj once a year and once in a lifetime if we can afford it. and then definitely, these are the 5 pillars of Islam.
Right, but
And
Imran, so now
there's
when we
another
talk
ayah
about
of
the
Quran
unity of
that
Muslim
says
Ummah,
that.
Sindhu sir, when we talk about the unity of Muslim Ummah, I would like to chime in because time is very short here. When are we going to realize our potential as a political body, right? I mean, a lot of Muslim countries, they are very rich in resources. They have the financial and economic means out there. But why is we do not see that political will out there and realize when will we come out of that, inferiority complex that yes, the caliphate was abolished and we were conquered by the West. When are we going to realize that yes, politically we can gather around and we can shake the world if we want to do that? When are we going to achieve that?
So Quran says, the Quranic verse says, "Innamal mu'minuna ikhwatun," that Muslims are not brotherhood; they are brothers. فَأَصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ أَخْوَيْكُمْ, and try to make peace and unity amongst the Muslim. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and be God-fearing. لَعَلَّكُمْ turhamun, so that you could have Allah's mercy. So the Allah's mercy and taqwa. Taqwa is our side and Allah's mercy is on the other side. If we have taqwa as a nation, so we will always be having a brotherhood. So this is the matter of faith. Now you are saying that why are we not politically united? I know that we now Muslims are almost 65, 66 nations, Muslim nations, but we from Muslim nations, our identity should be Islamic nations. When Islam is going to come into the core of our decision making, the Quran and the Sunnah. Instead, Muslim is our identity, no doubt about it. But being Muslim is another thing, being Islamic is another thing. So when we say Muslim, we are Muslim nations, it gives of kind of a secular meaning, but not an ideological meaning. So ideologically speaking, there are the governance system of Muslims should be united at some forum, a big forum
But sir,
like
in addition to this,
OIC.
there's another important aspect which I would love to ask, and that is that don't you think that the Muslims all over the world really need to realize that unfortunately they might be played with in the name of sect, in the name of secularism, in the name of how there's divide, that okay, you are right over here but you are wrong over here. Don't you think that the entire Muslim Ummah scholars need to sit together and make sure that that governance is being created or administered in a way where nobody or whatever their differences are, they are being put aside, and then they say, okay, yeah, hey, you know what, we can do things politically together.
Yes.
So when governance becomes a priority as compared to your identity, Muslim identity or ideology, Muslim nation is always going to be divided. Because governance becomes a priority. Like this is my land and this is your land. I will govern over here and you will govern over there. So when because governance is not the objective of life. Objective of governance is good. There should be governance, but not in. It should not compete the unity, the Muslim brotherhood. The Muslim brotherhood and matters of faith should be central to everyone, especially when we talk about, as discussed by many nations, that everybody was talking over there in the Muslim, summit, that the West should realize and not go against the Palestinians. They should resolve the Palestinian issue. The West should realize that Kashmir issue should be resolved. Why should we wait for the West to realize? Why don't we realize and we become united? And then as the Iranian representative said that we need to be united. Once we become united and it becomes part of our faith, the West is going to realize itself and retreat from the position it is taking. Like there's a small piece of land known as Israel that we don't, we don't even recognize as uh, as a state. So it's part of our faith. So I would say that
Dr. Imran bhai, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Lovely speaking to you as well. And certainly, whatever you have said, hypothetically, it looks like as if that's how it's going to work. But I think that we really need to kind of go deeper. We really need to have a proper setup where people get together from all over the Muslim countries and sit down and like, hey, you know what? We can be a massive political force driving towards getting back in power. I think we should go there. I think Hajra's made a very valid point that there's no harm in accepting. Only when you will accept, you will make sure that you can change things
right,
around
and that
as well.
calls for some very deeper self-reflection. But we are winding up this program with this show. Until next time, it's a goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and good morning.
Good morning, Jummah Mubarak. Thank you so much.